Hello, everyone. Thanks for giving us your time today. I'm joined by Don Carson here. I want you to say hi there, Don.
Howdy. Nice to be
Yeah,
here.
Don Carson. And Don, where do you work?
I work at Mighty Coconut. I'm the senior art director working on Walkabout mini golf projects.
Yeah. And you recently published a guest article with UploadVR that's linked down in the description there called, well, why don't you just give the title there and a quick summary of some of the ideas in it?
Well, the genesis of the article was that people are always asking whether this privately or when we're at a meetup, what is your process? And I usually answer it's actually relatively simple rules we follow. And so this article was Cultivating Magic, the Art and Principles of Walkabout Mini Golf Course Design. And it really lays out the simple steps of how we think about a new course as we're designing them each year.
Yeah, all right. So, and this is quite a process. So, what is when you initially come up with a course design, what does that look like? What do you do? What is the initial ideation process?
Lucas Henning and Lucas Martel is my boss. Henning is a fellow art director designer at
So Lucas
Mighty Coconut.
Martel is the one up on the stream here today, giving us the tour of Labyrinth, the Labyrinth course. So we've got the voice of Don Carson with Lucas giving us one of our tours over on that channel. You can check that playlist with all those tours over on also in the description, but also on our channel here. But yeah, I just wanted to clarify that. So Don, keep going there. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, we'll do a retreat. Usually we'll go somewhere. We'll get an Airbnb somewhere in the world. If we're working with an IP, we'll go visit wherever the IP owners are. And we'll do a brainstorming session for a whole week where we'll come up with the courses that we think that we'll be working on for the next year. We just came back from Hood River, Oregon for a week where we worked on courses for 2026. And so we'll come up with a combination of lists of things that people have said they really, really want. Our Discord community is very vocal, and we want to make sure that we're listening. And then we also have our own sort of pet projects we would love to work on, as well as are there any IP partners out there that we think would be a good fit for the kind of work that we do at Walkabout.
Got it. And then this team that you've joined and this process that you've built. So you're outlining various parts of a process. You're quite a long process there to sort of brainstorm an idea. In this article, we talked about how you start sketching out. Are all the artists on the team, like, is everyone building courses? Do they have the same process as you personally, or does
Uh,
it vary from person to person?
Everybody has expertise. Everybody has a place within that process. Lucas Henning and I tend to live at the front end. We also have been joined by Laura Kraus, who is another art director who joined us several months ago. And we'll brainstorm. We'll do the initial rough versions of the course in Gravity Sketch often. And then I'll tend to go away, or Laura will go away, and we'll start to map out a rough version of that course, both in Gravity Sketch as well as start to draw. I tend to draw everything from my background as an illustrator and as a concept designer. The process, A, is enjoyable, and B, it's a way to process the reference I'm looking up and understanding the background of where we're going to be depicting. And then it kind of helps me pre-build the assets by drawing them. So when I get into 3D and I start actually building these assets, I have this I've already kind of built them in my head so that it's a faster process to get them into the game.
So, for those that aren't aware out there, we've done a number of recent videos here on our channel. We talked to Andrew Ike over at Alchemy Labs last week in a very similar format to this one. And we ended that stream actually jumping into Dimensional Double Shift, the latest Alchemy game, together. And he explained that the premise of that game, where they're making jokes, is that you and your small team have to work together, and that's it. That's the premise of the game. You and your friends have to work together. Like, that's it, ultimately. And everything about the world that you're in is trying to make that a problem. Like they're trying to come after your team, and it's a fascinating like core premise for the overall job simulator idea of having a whole bunch of objects around you that you're playing with. Um, and he by the end of the stream, we were lighting our fingers on fire because if you light your fingers on fire, you can cook items more quickly in the game to complete your tasks because the item is in your hand catching fire. Beautiful, fun little stream with Andrew. And he talked near the end of the stream a really interesting thing. He actually talked about Walkabout by name, and he talked about. I asked him like, what would you say? Do you have anything strong to say about the future of this medium? And he's like, yeah, I've actually got that handled. What I would say is the thing that's going to make this take off, the immersive mass market VR take off, is when you can string together two great immersive experiences. Take Puzzling Places and Walkabout Mini Golf, for example. Right now, if you get a message on Slack while you're in Walkabout, you typically take the headset off and you maybe don't go back to Walkabout. What if you get a pop-up while you're in Walkabout that says your Slack message, you deal with it, you dismiss it, and you go back to Walkabout. When you finish your gameplay in Walkabout, you finish your session in this beautiful place, suddenly you feel more likely to go to another place, like, say, Puzzling Places, because your workflow is already in there. It's a seamless 2D workflow while you're going from immersive VR experience to immersive VR experience. I'm wondering if that sounds, if that means anything to you, Don, and what you think about sort of this market that you've arrived into, because you arrived into this market as a fan yourself, right? That's part of your
Yeah.
transition from what you were doing before to this.
Yes. My background is as a theme park designer, working for Disney and Universal. And when COVID happened, some XM engineers and I would play Walkabout Mini Golf as a way to visit and socialize, and we just couldn't help but see the parallels between the work we had done in theme park, real world physical places, and the work that Walkabout was doing. So I was a guest speaker to the small team at the time at Mighty Coconut, and at the end of the conversation, I asked, "Are you hiring?" And they brought me on about 3 years ago, and I've been having the time of my life, basically taking the design philosophies that I learned at places like Disney and applying them directly to our little miniature golf game.
Yeah, so we've just got Cherry Blossom up there now with Lucas leading the tour through that one. And I think that one had a recent remaster. So the video
Mhm.
on there is probably the old course before the remaster. And it's, you said our little mini golf game, but it's not so little anymore. So as we are talking right now, the game is on course 31 was the last one that was released. It was Viva Las Elvis, described by Mighty Coconut PR as the largest release yet that you guys have had for DLC content. And between your presence on some of the subscription programs that are available on things like PlayStation Plus or Quest Plus, and then this engine, you guys have a creative engine unlike any else in the VR market. Unless there's someone else I can think of, I can't think of anyone that is churning out content quite according
Aggressively.
to this process. Yeah, I mean, and this quality at this schedule, and paying attention to this process that you've outlined in this article for us, and then again on this channel of really respecting an artistic process. Like it really feels like these ideas need to bubble up from your hearts to begin with. Am I wrong on that?
No, that's exactly right. I had a wonderful conversation with Michael from Pixar recently, and we were floating around inside of Meow Wolf, and he asked the question, "Why is this so good?" And I said, I think because you can feel the love that went into the placement of every flower. And he said, that's right. And I would say that, and I feel it too, when it's every single one of our courses is handed to a different team member. And as it's handed to them, we hand the trust that they're going to take it further through that process and make good decisions based upon their own sensibilities. As the front end designers, we want to give them a simple enough rule book to be able to stay within the rails of what the intent is for the course, but we really, really want them to add what they feel is going to make it better. And there is nobody in the team that isn't doing that. And that includes the tech team that are responsible for the last sort of third, pushing it through, getting it optimized, getting the lighting beautiful, getting all the shaders working, and getting it running on multiple headsets. Each of them are making decisions that are going to make it better than any one of us had imagined it could be.
Yeah. And I guess what part did you play in developing this process with Lucas? Because you both have different backgrounds, and Lucas Martel, the head of Mighty Coconut. So one of the core questions I asked Andrew Ike, which I think is fair to put in front of you, even though you're at 3 years into Mighty Coconut, it sounds like, whereas Andrew was at 10 years at Alchemy Labs. But what I could ask him that I can also ask you is, what's it like to not be a founder at a startup? And I use the word startup carefully. Like, if you want to argue whether you work at a startup, please do, because I wonder whether that label applies um, to the type of company structure you've been hired into. I would love for you to explain what other artists need to be looking for in order to find a place as conducive to this process as you found.
Well, I've worked all over the place. I've worked as an individual freelancer. I've worked at startups, especially in the early 2000s, and I've worked for big corporations like Disney. And I can run a team or I can be a member of a team. As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't matter. It's how I can best support it. When I was brought in by Lucas, originally I was really a concept guy that was going to help decide what things look like, and then that would go off onto the team. I've kind of interjected this sort of placemaking design principles organically based upon sort of 40 years worth of designing theme parks and video games. These aren't necessarily rules. They're just ways in which to think how we approach the design. And a lot of this is happening at the very, very front end. And then it's referenced later on throughout the process. So I'm more than happy to just be a fellow participant in Lucas's vision. I think what's really unique about Mighty Coconut is we're neither a theme park company or a game company. Lucas started Mighty Coconut as a production company for film, and so there's a real focus on storytelling, and 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 it allows us to break rules we didn't know were necessary, rules that may hold down or hold back those other industries. So I've been in game companies where it's like, well, we don't do that, we're a game, or we're a theme park, so we don't do that because we're a theme park. We're kind of neither of those, so we kind of get away with really, really focusing our attention on the storytelling part and the immersive part without necessarily having to be held back by processes that are sort of placed upon other industries.
Fascinating. So this is a good time to transition to this model I've had in my mind. And I always have to gut check myself. And you're another professional in this industry who's just spent the last 3 years on, I don't want to put the words in your mouth on what that must feel like to be on this particular journey with Mighty Coconut at this particular time. I've pointed out to our audience that the game hit the store right before the Quest 2 launch, I believe. Just a perfect time to kind of a perfect time to build this engine that I'm talking about, that this creative engine that you guys are part of. And I also talk to people at like Supernatural, the fitness service, Leanne Pedante. I've talked to her a couple times, and I've done check-ins over the progress of like multiple years, where it's like, do you think VR fitness will get so big that it will be larger than physical fitness in gyms? Like, will there be a bigger market for people putting on headsets at home and sweating their eyes out without the prying eyes of another human on them while they make this transition for themselves? Um, or like, does VR never get there, right? And Walkabout is one of these examples in my head of mini golf and all the other activities now that are blossoming up on your courses. Those that include things like what slingshots now are the latest things that you've got in the game, and those things are you don't get to hole 4 on a physical mini golf course and then have a slingshot range, right? Like that's something you cannot do in a physical world that now is just part of your playground that you're making for people. And so I want you to take a deep breath, Don, and tell me how big of an idea you think Walkabout Mini Golf ultimately is and is going to be.
Well, the one of the concerns that colleagues that I have that work in the physical theme park world is that they'll push back against VR because they feel as though it's demanding that it trump physical reality, and it will replace it. And I just don't believe that that's ever going to happen. I think of VR as another outlet for creatives like myself to be able to transport people into stories that are sort of tactile, environmental, and immersive, and that are experienced best when shared with another person. That's not going to make me less apt to go to a gym or less apt to go to a theme park. It's just another form of artistic creative expression. For me, working at Walkabout, I would say without a doubt, while I've worked at some amazing places, it's my absolute favorite job I've had in 40 years of doing this work. Part of that is just the wonderful people I get to work with. We're a very, very small team. It takes roughly a year or a year and 2 months from conception to release of these courses, and we're working on maybe 7 simultaneously. So there's no chance of getting bored or jaded by what you're working on, because 2 weeks later you're going to be working on something else. I just love the process, and I love that I can create something that doesn't involve someone having to get on an airplane and pay $200 a day to ride. They can be anywhere in the world, share it with anybody. And then finally, because the process is so sort of immediate and the work cycle is so short, a lot of the sort of fundamental, raw, fresh concepts we had at the beginning are visible in the finished product, which I can't say is true of a big multi-billion-dollar project where your design goes through the hands of maybe 3,000 people and a lot of value engineering, that you're really, really lucky if the finished product feels like it has an essence of the sort of brainstorm that created it. And at Walkabout, I feel that those initial ideas are really visible and really viscerally experienceable in the finished product, because our process is so intimate with such few people touching it within such a small time frame.
Beautiful. What a fascinating, that is the encapsulation of the guest article. So I do encourage you to go read it if you're a creator of places, immersive experiences. And that's the next little part of this I want to talk with you, Don, is the labels that you use for yourself and people like you, people who do your job. What words do you most gravitate to now that you're kind of not a theme park and you're kind of not a game? You're making places and destinations. You're a placemaker, and people go to your destinations nonetheless. I would like to understand how you think of what this job ultimately is at its very core, when you strip away all that jargon that so many people love to debate or argue about. It just seems so distracting from the core beauty of what you're making. And I want to give you a place to sort of like we get in our comments like let me reframe it another way, okay? We get in our comments quite a lot recently. Where are the jobs? they're asking us to tell them where should they apply. And I don't have an answer to that, and I doubt you do either. It's a very ugly market out there with really difficult things like AI generated resumes being jettisoned out in ridiculous numbers alongside all your human resumes, right? So it's enormously scary out there. But if you take away where do I work, I want people to come away from this conversation going like, oh, this is the type of place that's going to be making beautiful VR experiences for years to come. And these are the features I can look for in that search. Because I mean, I see I want to give you a moment to speak here, and then there's a Doctor Who anecdote I want to share here. So respond to that a little bit for me, Don. What features or words, job description terms, what do people search for out there as they're trying to find a place that does what Mighty Coconut is doing?
Well, I started as an illustration major back in the early 80s, mainly because I wanted a job that would allow me to get paid to draw. I quickly realized that I really didn't care for the illustration world, mainly because I wasn't all that terribly interested in doing finished art. I really liked the process of doing rough conceptual stuff and then working with teams to take that conceptual stuff and turn it into something that's greater than just the initial concept. When I discovered that Imagineering existed and that was a job you could have, that became a real focus of mine because I loved the sort of mixture of theater and placemaking, and it followed the rules of composition and design and value and lighting and all those things that happen in illustration. So although I've had very diverse sort of clients, I've always felt secretly I've been doing the same job my entire life, which is world building, placemaking. The experience for me is very much like if you go to the theater, there's something intimate and visceral about being in the presence of the sets and the actors, but you're bolted to your chair. And in a ride, that chair lifts up and moves through sequentially or linearly through various scenes to tell a story when the ride is done well. And VR for me is the same thing. I'm a concept designer, I'm an art director, I'm an illustrator, so I communicate with drawings, but ultimately those are for a theatrical expression that a group of people or an ensemble of artists will put together. And right now, that's currently Walkabout Mini Golf. When I do freelance for companies that do theme park work, I don't approach the assignment any differently. Placemaking is placemaking, very much like my list of sort of rules that I've put in the article, is that if I can distill the experience and be honest and true and simple with the rules by which the design is based, then there's a greater chance that that experience will be successful. And I think that a lot of the praise that Walkabout gets is from people saying, why do I like this so much? Why is this so engaging? Why is this so immersive? It shouldn't be. It looks like Legos. And yet I'm sort of theatrically, I'm being evoked. I'm having emotions. Well, a lot of that is based upon these simple rules and the same tricks and same techniques that have been used successfully in image making, movie making, film making, and ride making. We're just doing it in VR.
Wonderful. All right, so let's look good. So I watched a video that was put into our queue that I need to help edit and work through, but we've had it in our comments. Someone pointing out that there is a TARDIS from Doctor Who in one of the online social networks called Resonite. So this is kind of like it's not VR chat. It's another one, and it's called Resonite. And some people in that community have built a TARDIS from Doctor Who that travels from world to world. And I was watching through the video last night with this writer who's working on this article, and we'll get that up soon. But these videos show our reporter essentially going and getting a tour of various TARDIS designs that these people have made in a social VR world, and some of the rooms that they were inside included like a map, or I saw a couple things. I saw their visual scripting system, which is fascinating. That whole visual scripting system built inside the social networking space, but they also had like a map they had built, like they had drawn in the open air of the interconnected rooms that they had built to represent like some kind of uh, Doctor Who related facility. And I had this while I'm watching through these videos, I'm seeing the exact behavior that I did as a kid with sand castles, with dirt out in my front yard.
Mhm.
Um, the exact same imagination play that I had to use physical props for. You mentioned Lego in the previous answer.
Mhm.
Um, People are doing with VR in every social network there is. They're doing it in Walkabout. They're doing it in Resonate. They're doing it in VR chat. They see an endless landscape for their imaginations play out. And gosh, if you get another person that wants to go in there and create a world with you, that's a magic that some people, you know, like the Imagineering experience is a rare kind of, like that idea of handing off art to someone else and they consume it and spit back something better than you could have done on your own is honestly not an experience that most people have had. Like plenty of people have like more experience with being copied, right? Than
Mhm.
like than that creative cycle. And so what I wanted to express that a little bit with you, Don, is this nugget of creativity on that I see in all people, and I see it come out of people through VR. The twin sisters that I've have in one of these tours, uh, they talked about those moments when they were kids, doing those playground moments with little plastic characters in their front yards, and those are some of people's safest moments in their brains is when they're in that creative play space.
Mhm.
um I'm wondering, when I so I asked you a couple questions back about how big of an idea you think VR is going to be, and I'm going to give you my take on that. And when I go through with Lucas, I think of Walt Disney a little bit as I'm going through these places. And I think of the idea of touring the different lands of Disneyland as they were being constructed by Walt Disney. And what would it have meant to have been to be to with a news camera as Walt is gesturing to every new land. Um, I'm wondering if you think VR destinations are going to be that big over the course of this century. People remember the year that Disneyland opened 50 years after it opened. Do you think we'll remember 2020 as the year that Walkabout Mini Golf opened its doors? Or does the idea not have that many legs? Am I thinking too big about the creative engine that is being born here?
Um, well, I would definitely equate your connection with Lucas and Walt Disney as far as having a vision and a passion, and then a willingness to bring the right people together that are not only brought together because of their skill set, but also he's crafting a family of people with an agreed vision as to what we're creating and a willingness to be on this journey together. So definitely, I feel that as well. Um, as far as the roots of VR, I think the biggest challenge that VR has right now is that it's not for a lack of amazing places to experience. And I would say that VR chat is full of just some mind blowing places that one can experience if one can find them. It's the conduit. It's the how do I find this? How do I promote it? How do I guarantee the quality of what I'm going to experience is at least um, on par with other things that I've seen. Um, when I think of in the 90s trying to get a producer to open up a video I've placed in a email that I had sent, often they wouldn't click on it because they didn't know what they were looking at. They didn't know how to interact with it. Today, if I sent them a YouTube link, they would click it and boom, video is just something that you consume through a click. I'm waiting for VR to have that. I think one of the unique things that Walkabout has is it's created its own park, basically, for lack of a better description, that you can revisit and know that each land is going to be of a similar quality. Each has been designed for your delight and your experience. It's not that VR chat isn't also full of those experiences. It's just it doesn't have a way to navigate it yet. As soon as someone figures out a way for us all to consume, no matter what headset we're wearing, good content that we can find, I think that's where VR takes off. I think our bubble of Walkabout is that we guarantee a level of quality, and we really aspire to surprise our audience with the next thing we come up with. Lucas spends a tremendous amount of his brain power orchestrating sort of the menu of the year's courses that are coming out, so that just about the time you think you've figured out what we're going to do, we'll surprise you with another approach or another bit of scale or another form of theatricality that we may not have done in the past.
Well, we're getting to the near the backside of this conversation here, and we're going to the VR Games Cast after this. If there's any UploadVR members out there, or anyone else out there quietly in the comments, we did not promote the stream. We wanted to keep it very intimate out here with Don Carson, as we just discussed this stuff, and then we of course are going to make this public afterward. So this is the very first benefit that we've given to UploadVR members on UploadVR.com, beyond just removing ads. But I'm really appreciative that you're kind of inaugurating this test with us, Don. We try to put everything we can out there into public as often as possible. But we also need to navigate this situation where fostering conversation on the internet and fostering safe spaces for people to talk about deep subjects is not always possible. And one of the topics that we have gotten into on these recent conversations with E. McNeil, with Andrew, as I said, with Alchemy Labs, is this disconnect that's out there between artists and art. The fact that people like we did an article last year on Batman Arkham Shadow, or maybe it was very early this year, where they have to distribute a global development team working in 3 or 4 time zones and hand off this product on a path through those time zones on a day, so that it comes back the next day, having gone through all these iterations. It's that there's a consistency there with what they do, with what you do, and an overall kind of direction that we're all heading towards. It's interesting you described this single link access. So in the last year, you also launched Walkabout Mini Golf for iPhone, and you basically have that. You've got to work within the app stores that are put in front of you. So Walkabout Mini Golf is still very much an app store game. It's fascinating to see Among Us change its name from Among Us VR to Among Us 3D, and it essentially consumed it. To me, when I look at that, it looks to me like VR has consumed the flat screen game, not the other way around. And it's a fascinating little indication of this overall wildly cool direction. I'm finding myself, Don, wanting to put my controllers into various tracked objects and leave them there. I find the allure of putting the tracked object, the controller, into the club or into another, like a gun stock type accessory, We're looking at a couple of those types of accessories right now. The idea that I put this tracked object into uh, a single item and then I hang it from my wall is actually more appealing to me because I know that when I go into Walkabout and play this game, I'm going to be sharing room codes with people I know and trust, and it's going to be a stellar experience. Basically, every moment that I have that physical club in my hand, right? And so, like this, I can feel the coming wave, just like you can feel the coming wave of people actually getting into these experiences for extended lengths of time um, because of these roadblocks just finally like it's like a waterfall falling or something, like a dam breaking finally in my mind of just people being kept from these experiences. We've got what is that up now? We've got another, I think, original Gothic. Is that what that is? Over there. Yeah, so we're on original Gothic as we get towards the 45-minute mark, is I think where we will wrap up this conversation with Don Carson today. Again, I'm so thankful to you. I'm thankful to the UploadVR.com members who have supported our work. It's really, really great out there to see that and to start fostering these conversations on an ongoing basis. I want to, so the thing that I was going to say, Don, like when you play test, with your team, like when you go through a draft of a world that's built, do you do it alone or do you do it with colleagues? How do you make notes for revision once the thing is actually built?
We actually do 1 or 2 playtests a week on the courses in their various stages of development. Sometimes the environment really is very, very rough, but at least the holes are playable. And other times we're doing passes where we're all playing it together and making aesthetic notes. Like this is your last chance to make comments about the aesthetics. And we do that continuously throughout the process. And also we get mixed with other people on the team that we may not be socializing with much. So our assignments may mean that we're sort of siloed with the same group of people, but when we get into a play test, we may be working with an engineer, we may be working with someone from marketing. We're getting to socialize with each other within the context of the product we're producing. And also, we're a remote company. There's a cluster of folks in Austin, there's a cluster in Idaho, and then the rest of us are scattered all over the globe. And so these play tests are an opportunity for us to be together as a company and as a group and have conversations that are focused on certainly the work that at hand, but also our lives and things that are happening in the world. It's the social thing we hope that our players are getting to experience. We experience on a weekly basis as a company.
Fascinating. And that journey, even from COVID in 2020 to now, that was a big moment. It's very interesting to look at what happened in 2020 in the context of now 5 years. We're half a decade now on from that moment, and you can see that you arrived at Walkabout, during that moment. And I've got this. Go check out our tour videos where I've got very much of the history of Walkabout chronicled there through the design of the various creators, including Henning and Lucas, as well as Don Carson up here, going through this journey with them from course to course to course. And I can see and feel as a player, Don, the added artistic hours that you're being able to bring to bear on the most recent courses. It's very apparent. I did this with Henning on the last one with Elvis. You're looking up and seeing the smoke and the lights, and you don't register it on a conscious level that that's there until you stand and just go through the course with just an eye towards looking around. There's so many layers that you guys have put in there that you just unfolded for us through your process of just, let's get the gameplay layer, let's get the set dressing layer, let's get the sound layer. All of it is just there, and um, getting better. You can
and
feel it getting
and
better and richer.
and everything was done for the player. 1,000% was us thinking, how is this going to be consumed and experienced by our players? And we're giddy about the courses that are coming. Um, like a comedy where you sit in the audience, you hope everybody will laugh at the places you hope they would laugh at. We hope that people will get the awe experience we've hopefully designed into certain courses, or the joke that we've designed into other courses, or a coziness that we've designed into other courses. But all through that process, we're thinking, no matter what we do, whatever plant we place in Meow Wolf, or prop we place in a future layer, it's all been for you guys. It's all been for the people who are going to come along after we're done and consume it.
Yeah, I think it was one of the twins, Tonda and Rhonda. Maybe I'll put a link down there in the description to that one as well. This will be a little link hub down in the description to all of my recent Walkabout coverage. And we've got a joke with our audience with just how often I cover the company. Yeah, obviously, Don, you are very aware of how often I cover this company. It's unusual in the space to focus in. Let me reframe it back around on you. The reason why I focus so much. Do you think I have put my focus in the right area in how often I come back to you guys as artists in trying to understand kind of what you're doing and why you're doing it? Like, do you think there's something unusual happening here in
I,
what you're building?
I absolutely hope that's true. That is certainly our goal. We'll jokingly say that miniature golf is a Trojan horse for what we're really doing, which is creating the context for humans to interact with each other. And we're bringing to bear all the cinematic and theme park and illustrative and all the design tools at our disposal to transport you with friends, hopefully, or by yourself into evocative places that enrich your experiences being a human. And those are lofty goals for a little miniature golf game. In fact, in many ways, I would say that some uninitiated person who sees Walkabout mini golf on the surface could easily eye roll at how simple it is that what we're offering, but then they experience it. And especially when they experience it with friends, they'll say, something else is going on here. And my answer is, yes, it is. And it is by design. And by listing out these principles, we're not showing off what we do. We're saying to other world builders, you can do this too. We give you permission to think about these things as you're designing, and not because it's a secret, but because these principles, thought in this order, actually can create really immersive, uh, loved and gifts to your audience. And also, if you're someone like me who was sort of born with the gift and the curse of wanting to build worlds, following these design principles will make your world building better.
Thank you so much, Don Carson. We are at 45 minutes here of conversing with you. So we've got Don Hopper, I think, in the queue as we get ready to do our VR Games cast. This has been exactly as enlightening for me as I'd hoped it would be, Don. I hope these questions were engaging for you.
Yes.
As Don Hopper here joins us here in the studio. I've said it on to the other devs who have joined us. If you find this format, useful or illuminating, like if we're getting at things that you're not getting elsewhere, please share this with, the other artists out there in the community. We're trying to start small here with fostering conversation and deep dives, exactly like you just got into over there over these 45 minutes. I think we'll say goodbye to you, Don. If there's any final note you want to leave on, just exit the room after your final comment here, and we'll switch over to the games cast. I can't wait to see what you build next in Walkabout Mini Golf. We will have those tours on our channel. If you've enjoyed this content, if this helped you, please become an UploadVR member on our site, uploadvr.com. this premiered first for our UploadVR.com members over there on the site. We'll try to do this in the future as a little bit of benefits for them. And you can also become a patron to support our work over there. Stay tuned for VR Gamescast with Don Hopper. Anything else out there from you, Don, before you tune out?
Always enjoyable. Always enjoy talking to you. And we're just as excited about you all getting to experience what we're working on now and on into the future. So thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. All right, we'll see you later. And now we are on to, the VR Gamescast. So I'll just take a nice deep breath here as Beck does the transition here and gets us our audio online for the next show. Beck, I hope you have a deep breath now too.